naming the class as test methods. In this, I am adding one more class also, methods. Two classes, guys. One is methods and one is test methods. In this class, I am going to declare two methods here. One method, public void add, statica, non-statica. Non-static, public. This is it. Nothing to talk here. Every method is by default non-static. If you want to make it static, prefix the static keyword. Example, every day we are doing it for main. If you don't write static for main, you got error. Yes or not? What it will tell you? Could not recognize a suitable entry point. Main must be static for sure. We already learned about all these things in the introduction classes. So static. Static is to make a method as static. First point clear? Every method is by default non-static. To make it static, prefix the static keyword. That's all. Nothing more to talk about it. Now, all of you, look at this. I'm declaring two fields here. Index is equals to 200. 100. Two fields here. One is non-static field, one is static field. Now, in the add method, in this add method, can I directly write console.writeLine x plus y? Yes or no? Let us see here. Console.writeLine x plus y. So is this valid or not? How to know? If you run the code, if there is any error, it will show you the errors. Just a minute. Console.writeLine. Okay. Console.writeLine. Yeah. Let me run the code. Hey, no error here. But no output. Array did not print anything here. Compilation done successfully. But you people said no. Array, when I said can I write console.writeLine x plus y, you people said no, but it's working. Now again, can I say console.writeLine x minus y here? In the second, can I write console.writeLine x minus y or any restrictions? You said x plus y is wrong, it worked. Now can I write x minus 1? Is it valid or not? Come on, faster. X minus y. Array, now error is coming. What you guessed is wrong. What you thought first is wrong, that worked. What you thought right is wrong, that did not work. Did you catch my point, all of you? Yes or not? So remember, all of you, there is nothing to explain about static methods, just one point, that's all, only one point. Except that nothing is there to explain. What is that point? If you are defining non-static methods, and inside the method, if you want to consume static members, you can consume them without any restrictions. Listen, what is that? If we are defining non-static methods, and if we wanted to consume any static members in it, we can consume them directly. No restrictions at all. See guys, your add method is static or non-statica? Louder. Non-static. Why is? Directly consumed it now, no restriction. So did you understand the point? No restriction, you can directly consume. Okay? If we are defining static methods, and if we want to consume any consume any non-static members in it, we cannot consume them directly. That is, we need to access them by creating instance of the class. We need to access them by creating instance of the class. Now come here. Error is coming with the x. Why error is coming with x? Because method is static, x is, you cannot access them directly now. I am not telling you cannot access them at all. You cannot access them directly, I am telling you. Then how to access? Create a instance now. Which class? Methods. Methods, obj is equals to new methods. Now come here and write obj dot add. Now there is no compiler. There is no compiler. But after showing this, all of you will be ending up with a confusion, guys. What confusion, you know? Confusion what we'll be having is, sir, sometimes you're directly calling, sometimes you're creating instance and calling, sometimes you're using this keyword. So all these things seems confusion for you. Yes or not? When should I call directly? When should I create an instance? All these particular things looks confusion for us. Am I right or not? We really will be confused with this concept like when direct calling is done, when instance calling is done, when this keyword is used, all will be a bit confusion for us. Okay? Let me clear all these confusions today so that tomorrow you should not face any more doubts or any more confusion in accessing one member from another place. Are you clear? Okay. Very simple, yaar. You are just confusing yourself, but this concept is very, very simple and easy. Okay? I'll clarify you. Watch. Consuming members of a class within the same class. The first thing I'm telling you, consuming members of a class within the same class. Okay? Look, I have a static member and I want to consume it from a static block. Are you clear? Guys, direct access, yeah. Direct access, yes, guys. Watch it. Watch it, all of you. Why is static? Sub is static. Directly called YRC. Understood? Direct access. Next. I have a static member. Want to consume it from a non-static block. Direct access only, guys. Direct access only here also. See. X is non-static. Sub is, I'm sorry. What I'm telling you? Static to non-static. Okay na? Y is static. Add is direct access. See? Direct access only we are done. Okay, next. I have a non-static member. Want to consume from a non-static block. Here also, direct access only. Watch it. X is non-static. Add is non-static. I am able to directly call it now. Then where is the restriction, sir? Restriction is only in one place here. What is that? I have a non-static member. Want to consume it from a static block. Can be accessed. It can be accessed only by using instance of class. That's all, guys, except that there is no restriction at all. Every day, forget today's class, today's code. From the last 1 week, you started object-oriented programming. You define methods in the classes. Finally, you are calling the methods from main. Recollect the first program you have written, the class program with the 4 methods, test 1, test 2, test 3, test 4. Okay, all the 4 are non-static methods. But where you want to call from static block? Because you want to call from static block, you went and created instance and called here. That is the last point. See, non-static members can be called from static block only by using instance now. Where did you call them? Look, I'll show you that code once. Program class. Go to program class. See, you have 4 methods. All the 4 are non-static. Correct? And now, where you want to call from? Main. Main is, that is why you created instance and called. If the 4 methods are not non-static, if the 4 methods are static, I can directly call the 4 methods here without any instance. Is the point clear or not? Why this one here? Yesterday also we saw. Yesterday also I shown you this. See, X is, Y is, you see, you directly called it. See, T is, sorry, Pi is also static only. Constant means static only. Directly called. Okay? But when you come to X and flag, both these are non-static. So that's why you performed instance calling. Is it clear? Okay. The only point I want to clarify is this one. Then what about this keyword here? This keyword, sir. This is another question here. What about this keyword, sir? Ray, this keyword is used only when there is a naming collision here. Without naming collision, this keyword I did not use any time. Yesterday, see, field name, variable name, they use this keyword. What did I say? X is equals to A. When field name and variable name are same, then only I said this dot X is equals to X. Are you clearer or not? So don't bring this keyword into picture here. This keyword is brought only when there is a naming collision between field names and variable names. Otherwise, we don't use this keyword anywhere. Are you clearer? And I given you a live example for all the 4 things right now in the code. For all the 4, you have that example code. Okay? Second thing. What is the second thing? Consuming members of a class from another class. I want to consume the members of a class from another class. Very simply here 4 points are not there, only 2. What's it? Your members are non-static members. Your members are non-static members. How to call? Using instance of class. Your members are static members. Your members are static members. How do you call? Prefixing class name. Prefixing class name. From where, sir? Anywhere. Static block, non-static block, same rules now. Within the class only static to statica, static to non-statica comes. When you go out of the class, static, non-static, same rules. Is it clear, all of you? I'll prove you. Watch it. How to call non-static members? Or otherwise I'll say prefixing instance of the class. Second case, prefixing name of the class. Prefixing name of the class. Okay, watch carefully. Now, these 2 methods I want to call from. You're calling within the class or out of the class? Come on, louder. They're calling out of the class. Methods class they are defined. We are calling from test methods. I wanted to call add. Want to call add? Okay. Add is non-static. So what to do? Create instance now. Create instance. Which class? Methods class. Methods M is equals to new methods. M dot add. Okay. Second method. Static or non-statica? Static. How to call? Methods dot sub. Array, that is only you are doing here. Console dot readline. Console is a class. Readline is a method. Static method. So same way. Method dot sub. Methods is a class and sub is a static method in the class. Are you clearer? Run and see. You get your output. Understood? From today, I think you should not have any more confusions in consuming the members from one place to the other place. Are you clearer or not? So follow these particular guidelines what I given to you. So when you are consuming, where you are consuming? Within the class or out of the class? Within the class, remember the 4 points. Why to remember the 4 points here? If you remember this point, not enough. First 3 are direct access only. Then what is the question there? Only 1 point you should remember. What is it? If the members are non-static, we cannot directly call from static block. What is required? Instance is required. Out of the class, also simple. Static, prefix the class name. From day 1 we are following. Non-static, prefix the instance of the class. Any doubts? Except this, there is nothing to explain you with the methods. Except this, there is nothing to explain you with the methods. Yes, guys. Do anyone has any questions now? So first I said you about fields. Next I said you about methods. Okay? Here also, I only said you about the behavior. I did not tell you when to use a static method or when to use a non-static method. We'll discuss about that also in the next class. Is it clear? What next? We require to understand the difference between constructors also now. What constructors? Static constructors, non-static constructors. Static constructor, non-static constructor. Okay? class is completed. Okay? I teach everything. I know what to teach and what sequence I to teach. Don't tell me what to teach. I'll tell you everything. After the completion of the course, you ask me whether I taught or not. The time should come here to speak about everything. I cannot tell you something in the middle. Sir, please show consuming from other class. Are you sleeping, Selvan? Shown you consuming from another class? See, where the methods are defined. Methods class. Where did I consume? Test methods class. Again you are telling, show me, sir. Shown you already. Is that clear? I already showed you. Consuming from another class. How to consume from another class also? I showed you there. Okay. Yeah. The next thing is about constructors. The next thing is about constructor. Static constructor, non-static constructor. First, can you tell me what constructors are static and what constructors are non-static? What constructors are non-static? Every constructor is by default non-static only. Every constructor is by default non-static. And to make it static, prefix the static keyword. First point. Every constructor is by default non-static only. Every constructor is by default non-static only. And to make it, close your notes. You too. Everyone, close your notes. Concentrate in the class. Every constructor is by default non-static only. And to make it static, what to do? Prefix the static keyword before the constructor. You already know this. By default, every constructor is non-static only here. If you want to make it static, prefix the static keyword before it. Clear? Watch. I'll show you practically. We'll define a class called constructors. Fields and methods we define. Now I'm defining a class called constructors. Okay. Now tell me, this is static or non-static? This is non-static. Now static. Now it is static. So now you guys watch. I defined both the two things in the class. What did I define? One static constructor and one non-static constructor. Let's write some code here. Console.writeLine. Now what? Static constructor is called console.writeLine. What is that? Non-static constructor is called. Static constructor is called. Non-static constructor is called. Is it clear? Fine. Now, remember, yesterday or day before yesterday we discussed this. Constructors are implicitly called or must be explicitly called. Constructors must be implicitly called or explicitly called. Either or is wrong answer. That is for defining. On that day very clearly said you, and again you are making mistakes. I did not talk about defining constructors. I said you also, defining constructor is like cooking the food. You can cook or someone can cook. We are talking about calling the constructor by eating the food. Explicit or implicit? Explicit. What did I say? Explicitly called. Are you clear? Now I am making a small modification to that statement, guys. I already said you, constructors must be explicitly called. But I am making a change to that particular statements. What is that, you know? Watch. Non-static constructors must be, I am sticking to this point. Because till now what we defined is non-static only. Whereas static constructors are implicitly called. Am I clear, all of you? Yes or not? But earlier you said implicit here. Yes, yeah. Earlier you said explicit, sir. Yes, guys. Earlier I explained to you about non-static constructors. So that's why I said they are explicitly called. But now today we are talking about static constructor. That's why I corrected my point and telling you array static constructors are implicitly called. Shall I prove you? Watch. Do we have an entry point in your code now? No entry point. So code 1 run. Remember, just a minute guys. Come here. Put it here. Run the code. Code 1 run. Why? No entry point here. Are you clear? Main method is mandatory. Entry point is missing. So let's write static void main. Now, do you have an entry point defined now? Yes or not? Did you write any code in it? Hey, did you write any code in it? No, we did not write any code in it. But guys, observe, when you run this, see the output. What I proven you here, array, I did not call it anywhere. When I added the main method, not even a single, I added entry point, that's all code executed. Are you clearer or not? So, non-static constructors must be explicitly called, but static constructors are implicitly called. Okay now? Next. What did you learn 3 days back? Constructors are responsible for initializing fields now. Constructors are responsible for initializing the fields. Okay? So as we discussed earlier, constructors are responsible for initializing fields. As we discussed earlier, constructor is responsible for initializing fields. Remember this now? But guys, yesterday you learned fields are 4 types. What are the 4 types? Static, constant, non-static, read-only. Now, can you tell me what fields are initialized by static constructor and what fields are initialized by non-static constructor? Think here, very simple. Static will initialize what? I asked in English only. There are 4 types you have now: static, constant, read-only, non-static. And here 2 constructors are there, static and non-static. Simply here, use your common sense. What fields are initialized by static constructor? Brainless fellow. Static fields here. What fields are initialized? Static fields and constant. Static and constant same no? Non-static? Non-static and read-only fields. As we saw that example today only. In non-static constructor, we initialize X and flag. Both are non-static only. And static constructors are used for initializing static and constant. So watch. As we discussed earlier, constructors are responsible for initializing fields. So static constructor will initialize what? Static and constant fields. Static and constant fields. Whereas non-static constructor will initialize non-static and read-only fields. Okay now? Combine everything. See, when you are listening to a call, you also require to remember what you learned earlier. Not only comment. What you learned earlier is you need to mix both the 2 things now. Okay? Now answer this question. When static fields are initialized, yesterday I explained to you. When a static field is initialized and when a non-static field is initialized. Everything is at the time of execution only. Compilation time will initialize. Everything is initialized at the time. I want the time, correct the time. Don't come to the class without reading, guys. Useless. Everyone should scold you. don't read the notes and come to the class again? What did I say? Immediately once the execution of the class starts, then I clearly showed you also. I put a point there and said you execution is starting from May. So this is when the execution starts and when it is initialized. I draw and shown you also. When is it initialized? Louder. Immediately once the execution starts. All of you are sitting online also. Read here, read. Why are you wasting my time? Why are you eating my brain? Read and come. You don't do any work, you want to get up jobs. And you want to change up the fate of the companies. Everything is initialized after execution only, not static. But the point I want, what is the point? Immediately once the execution of the class starts. What about non-static and read only? What about non-static and read only? When non-static and read only fields are initialized? Non-static or read only, both are same only now. When they're initialized. When instance is created. When we create the instance, they're initialized. Okay? As well as each and every time you create the instance. Okay? So, use your common sense here. Relate the fields with your constructors. Relate the fields with your constructors and answer this question. When a static constructor executes. Static constructor initializes static fields. Just now we discussed when static fields are initialized. Now tell me when static constructors execute. When static constructor execute. Louder here. Main method, wrong answer. Tell me where you're answering where they're initialized. I asked you when they're initialized. Brainless fellows, everything is initialized at the time of execution only. Again, you're telling at the time of execution, everything is initialized at the time of execution only. What is your brain here? I don't understand. When a static field is initialized? When a static field is initialized, immediately when the execution starts, who will initialize? Static constructor, who will initialize? Then you got your answer. Static constructor executes immediately once the execution of a class starts. Are you clear? I did not ask you where is it executed. When is it executed is the question. Immediately once the execution of a class starts, understand here, relate everything I'm telling you. You're learning something, you're sticking to there only. What you learned earlier also relate now. Static fields are initialized immediately once the execution of the class starts. Who will initialize? Static constructor. Then the answer is there only, no? What is the answer? Static constructor executes immediately once the execution of a class starts and initializes the static fields. Are you clear? What's it? Static, see, how many times I'm scolding you, you're still doing the same mistake again and again. Today's class, read and come to the class. Practice and read and come to the class. So next time you will be in a position to answer the questions. You're not reading at all. You're attending to the class as a waste here. If you do like this, you've done the same thing only in your colleges also. You're doing the same thing only now also. You want to get a job within 6 months, this is not the way you need to work. I'm very clearly telling you, that my words may be harsh. My words may be harsh, but that is truth. If you don't have the knowledge of the subject, tomorrow how will you succeed in interview? In a classroom only you're not able to answer. In interviews what will you answer? Yesterday's topic you cannot answer. Today after 6 months you go to interviews and you remember all these things. Read guys. All times I'm telling you, LKG students are better than you. If I say once they follow, you're not following at all. The static constructor executes immediately once the execution of a class starts, and in this process it will initialize static and constant fields. Clear? Now can you tell me about non-static now? When non-static constructor executes, after creating instance, Non-static constructor executes only after creating instance of the class, and in this process it will initialize what? Non-static and read-only fields. Are you clear? Okay? And don't forget what it is. Non-static constructor executes for each instance we create. Yes, na? For every instance it will execute now. 10 instances created, 10 times it will execute. Okay? Now, you can answer this question now. In the life cycle of a class, how many times a static constructor is called? Yesterday only explained to you. One and only one time. How many? One and only, not one time. Last class also corrected you, not one. What is the answer? One and only one. Static, non-static? Minimum 0, maximum n. Everything is fields only, guys. These two are interrelated. You know about fields, you must know constructor also. You know the constructor, you must know fields. Both are interrelated. Is my point clear, all of you? Okay, that's what I'm telling you. You need to relate your previous topic here so that you understand the things. So that's what. So in the life cycle of a class, static constructor executes one and only one time. Non-static constructor executes for 0 or n. 0 or n. No instances created, 0 times. N instances created, n times. Point clear? Okay. So this is all about constructor calling, how it happens to you. One more question, guys. One more question here. What it is? Look. Can I pass parameters to this constructor? Int I. Just a minute. One more thing I want to tell you. What is this? Non-static constructor executes only after static constructor executes immediately once the execution of a class starts. One more point I need to add here. And this is the first block of code to run in a class. This is the first block of code to run in a class. What do you mean by that? What I mean is, look all of you, carefully watch it. I'm writing a statement in main method also. We all know execution starts from main method. Yes or not? Even though execution starts from main method, the code what executes first is not the code in main method. See, watch the output. Are you clear? Main method won't execute first. What will execute first? See, simply just understand here. Suppose if you look at this code here, if a main method executes first and afterwards static constructor executes. Suppose if a main method executes first and afterwards static constructor executes, then why will not be initialized then? Why is initialized by static constructor only now? So if main method executes first and afterwards static constructor executes, why is not initialized? So this true will give you error. But what is happening first? Static constructor is executing and then coming to main method. Means already static and constant fields are initialized or not? So that's why when you come to main method, you are able to print these two values in this process. I hope you guys are clear. So I practically showed you that also. Watch. Static constructor, afterwards main method. I hope I'm clear with the point what I added for you now. Yeah, you can read this again. Static constructor executes immediately once the execution of a class starts, and this is the first block of code to run in a class. And in this process, it will initialize static and constant fields. That's why after that you come to main method, you can print the y and the phi values because they are initialized. Clear? Everything should be done in a particular order. Yeah, you cannot change. See, you go to a drink manufacturing company, a soft drink manufacturing company. There's a process to do it. Everything should be done in a process. You can't change the cycle now. What's it? First, there'll be big containers under which they will prepare it. The big containers here, 100, 200 liters containers will be there. And inside of the containers, they'll be preparing this actually. Inside of the containers, they will be preparing this actually. Okay? So, what is it? They pick water and some concentrate on the liquid will be there, that will be mixed. And afterwards stirred and things are ready. Afterwards, what will happen? Bottling. After bottling, capping. After capping, labeling. Labeling. After labeling, like a batch number and all the thing. Can you change the sequence? Can you do capping first and bottling next? You can't change the sequence. So here also, the sequence to be followed. Then only execution takes place. That sequence is important. First, execution starts from main. Okay? Execution starts from main entry point. But before it goes to execute the code in the main, it will jump to static constructor, executes it, comes back, and then executes the code inside the main. Clear, huh? What about non-static, sir? Non-static is, in the main, instance creations are done. When instance creations are done, then it will go to non-static. Until then, it won't go to non-static. Instance creations done, then only it will go to non-static. I hope you guys are clear. That process, we need to understand that only. As a developer, we need to understand that only. When you're writing the code, which code you should write where? If you want to get a clarity, you need to be clear with the process first. Okay? What starts execution? Where it goes next? Breakpoints in all the places, guys. Run the code. Then it will show you where is it starting, where is it going, afterwards where is it coming. Everything you can see sequentially by putting breakpoints in your code.